Do you think music has a meaning?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's good to be more spiritual soul than anything now. Pretty soon I believe that they're going to have to rely on music to like get some kind of peace of mind or satisfaction, direction actually, more so than politics, because like politics is really on the ego scene, you know. That's why I look at it. It's not a big fat ego scene, for instance.
Ego scene.
Yeah, it's the art of words, which means nothing, you know. So therefore you have to rely on a more of a earthier substance, like music or the arts, theater, you know, acting.
If the sun refuses to shine.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
Double down, lug nut. Welcome to the Fo0H Tribe, bitches.
Gang, it's hotter than the sun's core here in North Carolina. Holy jumping catfish. How about Jimi Hendrix laying down the smackdown out of the gate? Such an ego scene. Welcome to the Fo0H Tribe. Welcome to the Fo0H Tribe Podcast, where men can be men. And today, we're diving headfirst, headstrong into the shallow end on topic headline number 6 from the Equimundo survey done on the State of the American Men 2023 study. Yeah, that's what we're doing. And then my cohort comes in and feels like he's being left out and just has to ring in some madness. Okay, I got you. So do me a favor, do Butch and yourself. Let me try that again. Do me a favor, do yourself a favor. I think now is a perfect time to be candid with you, that you just go out and you grab maybe like a lemon seltzer, wedge of lime, get yourself dialed in and refreshed. And you know what? I'll see you in there. Hey, let's get into some data. Is anybody feeling like they want to get into some data with headline number 6, titled, Trust No One? This is going to be another quick one, actually. We got some good data that I could share with you guys, but like last week's podcast, it's short and sweet and right to the point. And so if I have some personal stories that I could share with you, I will 100% do that. But let's get into it. Let's get silly. So headline number 6, Trust No One, is described as young men have few clear loyalties to any politician, public figure, or public institution. You heard me correctly. So here is bullet point number 1. Young men's attitudes reflect the general political polarization of the country, with 29% of men across all ages saying they trust President Joe Biden, compared to 24% of men of all ages who trust former President Donald Trump. I think what's interesting about those numbers, it's not even a majority. You know what I mean? Like, not even a majority. What's everybody else thinking? You know what I mean? All right, here's data point number 2. More of the youngest men trust online misogynistic influencer Andrew Tate 20% than they trust Biden at 15%. I'm going to read that again. More of the youngest men trust online influencer Andrew Tate with a 20% than they trust Biden at 15%. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh. Among bullet point number 3, among public agencies and institutions, from the federal government to police to schools, trust ratings range from 14% to 23%. I mean, do we have a lot of faith in our political system? Do we have a lot of faith in our local government, our schools? Jeez. And check this out. Tell me if you're not surprised about this. The U.S. military holds the most trust with men, with 31% saying they trust it. That doesn't surprise me at all. But 31%? I mean, these numbers are confirming that the people in this study don't trust too many people. And if they do, it's Andrew Tate. Man, oh my gosh. All right, so here are some also pretty good data points that should also be mentioned as sub-bullet points. So low trust in public institutions is common across the age and gender groups in the U.S. Furthermore, it's telling that neither Biden nor Trump hold close to a majority of men's trust. The most shocking finding is that among the youngest men, Andrew Tate is trusted more than he is by President Biden. That's a point I guess we already reiterated. And then, taken as a whole, these findings suggest large percentages of men, particularly younger men, trust no one in the public sphere. Now, on the flip side of that coin, this also means that there is a huge space for testing approaches, campaigns, and outreach to bring men into the conversation about healthier manhood, gender, equality, and racial justice. Hiding in plain sight within the fray of the polarized politics, there is a huge swath of men in the middle, a situation that cries out for clear leadership and stronger forward-thinking directions for men's lives. I mean, that's the saving grace. That ultimately is the saving grace. And by no means am I suggesting that, this podcast or me as the host has any, grand vision on how we could slay this incredible distrust for our political system, our incredible distrust for the candidates in the system, how polarized we are. I mean, that's a big challenge. And I have no idea or even a foundation of where we can start. But what I can say is that over the course of the last week, now that we are going to be wrapping up on the State of American Men 2023 research study, I've been asking myself, I asked myself, Rennick, how do you define sort of a traumatic event or call it a traumatic experience? And so I took to my pen and paper and started writing down what my definition is. And I'm not going to share that with you now because I don't think it's relevant for this specific podcast. But as I think about how anyone or this podcast has the potential of impacting men in any way, I'm thinking that instead of trying to solve all these, instead of trying to boil the ocean, right? Instead of trying to figure out how we heat up that whole thing, like, why don't we start in a much simpler and easier way? I am a huge fan of the KISS model, not the Gene Simmons KISS or Gene Simmons condoms or anything like that, but the keep it simple, stupid type of mindset. Like if you give me enough time, I can wrap myself around the axle and really not have any idea where I'm going and just wasting time. But as I think more and more about, the state of American men and the research in this study, I think that this swath of men that are somewhere in the middle are men that have, in some way, shape, or form, experienced a traumatic event or experience that has had a profound impact on how they see the world. And I believe, if my assumption is correct, the last thing a man will do in face of this emotional adversity is to ask for help, or better yet, figure it out on their own. And most times, rather than not, when I know I've said I just need some time to figure it out, I'm really saying I just want to ignore this and have it go away. And it does in the short term, but the reality is that it never goes away. And what you don't work on now, you work on later. And in cases like this, where there's a swath full of men who more than likely has had, scenarios unfold for them that they can't figure out and refuse to figure out and don't want to figure out, because it will confirm that they feel less than and that they're vulnerable and that they should never feel that way, which is the farthest thing from the truth, right? But that's what they tell themselves, I believe, because that's what I told myself, that if you can't identify what the problem is, then there's just no way that you can solve it. And so I think in the coming weeks, I'm going to share a process of, maybe hopefully empowering men to answer a set of questions, 10 questions, and then align, let's just call them dynamic situations, traumatic situations, in a way where they might be able to open up to the idea of exploring the discomfort it brings, as opposed to burying it and hiding it and say it doesn't exist and say, I can handle this. I can handle this. And being the age that I'm at like right around 53, I played that game for a really long time. I can handle this. Put it in my backpack. I'll carry this around, and I won't figure it out, but I'll just carry it around because that's part of my job. And so, it gets to the point where this backpack is so heavy, the seams are breaking, my knees are buckling, and I just can't carry it anymore. It's like 1,000 pounds. And I got to lug that bitch everywhere I go. And it's not until I start pulling out the rocks that I start acknowledging that they're there. And that's kind of what I'm hoping I can help others try to figure out, which is, what are those rocks that you're carrying around? And do you want to explore what they are and what they mean? And if the answer is no, then that's fine. But if you are on the flip side of that coin and you say to yourself, yes, I would like to explore what those rocks are that I've been carrying around in my backpack, because I don't want them in there anymore, and it's not my job to have them in there anymore. And what are they? And why are they there? And how did they get there? Right? That I think could have a potential to help clear away some of the wreckage of the past that keeps us stagnant and broken down and all of those things. And yeah, so with this topic, trust no one. I mean, how relevant is that to what we're talking about now? Like literally, we don't trust anyone. We prefer to trust Andrew Tate more than we would our own president. At least the younger kids do. What does that tell you? If that's not a huge cry for holy jumping catfish, we're in a state of DEFCON 5 and the missiles are in the air, I don't know what else to tell you. But what I can say to you is, instead of trying to solve that problem right now, maybe there's simpler things that we could consider that someone may have not considered before that they would consider now. Are you in enough agonizing pain to deal with it? And believe it or not, I think a lot of people would say, no, I'm not there yet. I'm not in enough pain yet. I can still carry the load. And I get that. And that's why I think this whole dynamic is really interesting, because time is a factor. Time is a major factor. And when people are ready, or when they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, or they're tired of doing the same thing over and over again, or are so delusional that they believe that they don't have any part in the problem, then you get the people who choose not to want to see what their part is, because they're so scared and terrified of what the outcome could be and what they could be accountable for. And when you've spent your entire life not being accountable for anything, no one wants to wake up to the reality that one day they are accountable. I mean, that's terrifying, or it could be terrifying. And what I'm telling you is that it isn't. And you may say I'm full of shit, and that's fine. But I have witnessed and helped countless people do amazing things that they could not do until they were at a place where they had nowhere else to go. They had exhausted all their resources. They had, lied to family and friends. They were truly, truly alone. And what's interesting about this topic is that you don't have to be in that spot of being naked and all alone and finally being compelled to ask for help if you want to try and get better. And I'm not putting a figure on it. A definition of getting better could be, okay, I acknowledge that I have a part in what's going on here, but I still refuse to look at it. Well, if before you didn't acknowledge you had a part, but now that you do, that's progress. And that's why this, I believe, is going to be a slow progress. But what do I know? All I know is that this topic and the other ones that we've discussed are extremely troubling to me. And yes, the I won't say the nukes are in the air, but they're loading up the gas tanks, because there is a epidemic of major seismic proportion that I'm seeking to address and want to address and want to call out to the open and want to convey that it doesn't have to be as scary as you may think it is. Because it is scary. And it is all of what you think it could be. But all you got to do is just open the door. You know? If there's a name for it, someone's already done it. And I think in closing, it's important for me to share that if you can relate to any of what I've talked about here for the last couple minutes, and you feel completely isolated and unique to the extent that no one knows how bad I have it, no one can truly understand, then I will say to you, I get that, and I've been there too. And if all we can do is support each other in any way, shape, or form for gradual progress, that's a home run. That's a home run. I don't have any expectation of you. Why? Because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that no matter how hard I try, no matter how much I give, no matter what I do, I cannot help you to get better. Only you can. So knowing you're not alone and have this podcast helps, then I guess we're making progress. I can't even begin to tell you how freaking hot it is in my apartment. I have the AC set at like 74 and it's like 82 degrees. And I don't even want to get up. Butch is panting. I'm slugging down water like I need an IV. And, I'm going through this research. So let's call it a day with that. And I will say to you, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, right? And just get the fuck out of here. And we'll see you on the next one. I'll see you in there. I mean, seriously, though, if a 6 did turn out to be 9, would you mind? And my answer would be, if I was doing calculus, I would. If I was working on some algebra, I'd be really pissed. But I'm not, so I don't mind. So, hey, thanks for hanging in for this podcast, going over headline number 6. We didn't have a lot of data to talk about, but I think the data was strong enough to confirm that, hey, man, not too many of us trust a lot of people, and that's not a good thing. I think we all need to feel like we belong somewhere, at least in my opinion. Check us out at thefoodtribe.com. Check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Apple Podcasts. Check us out on TikTok. Check us out on YouTube. And next week we'll go over topic number 7. I'll see you in there. Blueberry Chesterfield, South Korea.